Alright guys, another broken Toyota 2014 Toyota Camry. It's got 84,251 miles on the clock. I'm just kidding, no, it's not broken. We're doing maintenance. This is only like a quarter of the car's life expectancy. Thanks for tuning in to Making It Work. By the way, I'm Jimmy. You can't see me right now because the camera's facing the Toyota emblem. Let's do it. Alright guys, one of the things we're going to do on this is a brake fluid flush. So I got to grab my, first want to check the cap obviously for contamination. Sold for maintenance, but you still never know the history. See if the rubber's swollen on the cap, make sure it hasn't been contaminated or anything like that. Because if it was, and you do the flush and didn't catch it, you'll get blamed for it. So, get my tool here and we'll fill up brake fluid. This is what I'm going to use to suck the brake fluid out of each wheel, starting from the rear to the front. It doesn't matter as much as it used to in the old days. In the old days, the cars had one brake line going all four wheels, so they told you to go from the right rear, right front, and left front. But now they all have separate brake lines, so it's not as critical. But I still force a habit. I still tend to do the back wheels first and then the front wheels second. This is what we're going to put the brake fluid in, and this will go on top of the master cylinder. It'll feed it with gravity through this fitting into the reservoir of the master cylinder. Valve keeps it closed this way. It's open when it's in the direction of the tube. I'm going to put this on the make sure fluid comes out. And use this little clip to retain it to the master cylinder, so now it won't fall off. Now this will keep the brake fluid from running out in the reservoir, because when the fluid gets to the edge, then the fluid can't come out. It kind of stops itself under weight, so it uses gravity. As the fluid goes down, it'll drain out of here. So you can do all four wheels without running out of fluid. I try to run at least one full bottle through all four wheels, depending on the shape of the brake fluid. If the brake fluid's not too bad, then you don't have to do quite so much. Just make sure you got clean fluid coming out of each of the brake calipers. But if the fluid's nasty, that may take a while. It may take 2 bottles. So use your judgment. I'm going to clap this thing up so it goes faster. It's taking way too long. Almost every car is either 8mm, which is 5/16, 10mm, 3/8, or 11mm on the bleeders. This car happens to be 8mm on all 4 wheels, which is unusual. Crack the bleeder, make sure it loosens good with the box end. Then you can install your tool's bleed hose. This had a plastic hanger contraption, but it broke pretty quick within a few months. So I just use a coat hanger. I bent a piece of coat hanger for it. It's going to get loud once I hook up the hose, but I'll hook up the hose and I'll crack this bleeder and you'll see fluid start pulling through. And then if it's not pulling enough, then just turn the bleeder open more. I'm going to give that a minute. When I start to see fluid building up in the bottom here, I'll know that I'm getting pretty close. And the fluid will actually, it doesn't have as much of a yellow tinge already. It already got a little clearer. So the fluid's not very dirty on this car. Toyotas are pretty good about that. Most of what turns the fluid dark is the copper that's in the brake lines. And Toyota doesn't use copper in their brake lines. So the fluid tends to be cleaner to begin with. So I'll let this go a minute or 2 on that wheel. After a minute or 2 on this wheel, I'll pull the air off of it and let the vacuum rest go back to atmosphere pressure. You'll see the fluid will stop moving. If you pull it off while it's under a vacuum, it'll suck air in. So you want to pull off the air suction, stop, turn the tool off, let everything equalize, and then pull it off the bleeder. Let it gravity bleed a second or two so no air comes out of the bleeder. Tighten up the bleeder and move to the next wheel. And now the pressure's equalized and you see the fluid stops. That means I don't have a vacuum anymore. I'll just wait a few seconds, give it a little extra time, don't be in a rush. Otherwise you'll end up with a spongy brake pedal. That's about it. It's gravity feeding now. I'll give that a minute to gravity bleed, or not a minute, a few seconds. See nice clear fluid coming out. Which, like I said, Toyotas are pretty forgiving about that. But a lot of vehicles, that'll be grayish black until you get your new fluid through, then it'll turn clear like that. I have no more air bubbles coming out of here. Sometimes tapping on the side of the caliper will release any sticky air bubbles because the castings inside are rough and it makes air bubbles cling to them. I'll just give it a couple taps, make sure there's no more little tiny air bubbles. The more air you get out, the better the pedal's going to feel. That's good. You button this up, move to the next wheel. You can do it pretty quick. Watch how fast we're on the next wheel. I told you it's pretty quick to get on the next wheel. Took like, what, a tenth of a second? So, easy. And I'll show you one of the front wheels. You got to do this 4 times. Not hard, you just got to be a little bit patient and try to be thorough so the customer actually has clean brake fluid at all 4 wheels. I wanted to mention too that most of you guys probably know, but maybe you don't, the brake fluid is caustic to paint. It'll destroy paint, put stains in it and things like that. So while this is gravity bleeding, I wanted to point something out. I stuffed a rag in here. I got a little careless on the other side. I didn't put a rag in here. It's a steel wheel, so it doesn't matter as much, but you still got to be careful. With a nice alloy wheel, it'll actually cause a clear finish to get stained, or a painted wheel, it'll stain the paint. So you should put a rag or something under so that when it gravity bleeds and drips, it'll drip on your rag instead of on a nice, really finished wheel. Not as critical on a steel wheel, but you still should be careful. So this side, I remembered to show you guys to do that, even though it's, like I said, it's not a fancy wheel, but still got to be careful. Treat it like it's your car. This one's done gravity bleeding. Good to go. Alright, that's nice. Now onto the front. Oh, don't forget your bleeder caps if the car still has them. They're good for keeping dirt out. It'll minimize the rust and all that kind of stuff too for next time. It's amazing how quick the flow clear fluid in these Toyotas. Taking a little longer to equalize in the front. Oh, stop moving. Good. The leaders have to be closed pretty tight too. Obviously you don't want to break them, but it's a little tighter than you might feel comfortable with, just to make sure they don't seep brake fluid under pressure. It's a tapered seat, there's no gasket or anything, so I always make sure they're pretty snug. Rubber cap. Tiny bubbles in the wine. Let's let me know that we're about done with vacuum on this thing. I can let it gravity bleed a little bit and everybody's gonna win. It's gonna be a brand new car and a couple more flushes. I gotta do coolant, I gotta do transmission. Oh, get over here. You can If your car has really nice wheels and you're really worried about messing them up, you can put a piece of rubber vacuum hose on there. And if you put it higher than the caliper, obviously, then you'll never get air in, but it'll help you bleed it, gravity bleed it better. And it'll keep the fluid off the wheels. I do that kind of stuff if someone comes in with very expensive wheels. Organ donor. Alright, this brake flush is done. I'm going to let it down, check the fluid levels, and check the brake pedal, and move on to the next service we're doing. Nice and easy to empty the old fluid. I don't know who makes this. I bought it from Mac, but someone obviously makes it for them. I'll put a link in the description for one of these brake bleeder kits if you don't have one yet and you're interested in getting one. I'll have it in my Amazon store under specialty tools, and I'll try to put a separate link in the description. It's easier to find as well. Just about the whole bottle. Only a tiny bit left. Fluid level's good. Every brake fluid cap has notes on it about this kind of thing. Use fluid only from a sealed container. Use only .3 fluid. Clean filler cap before removal. So. Check the pedal on this thing. That's about as good as you're ever going to get a brake pedal right there. It's about 3/4 of an inch and it's rock solid. So, all right, guys, that was a quick brake flush tutorial. Hope you got something from it. Always remember to check the brake fluid cap, clean off the area if it's dirty, and look at the cap. It'll show you on the cap whether it's .3, .4, etc. Most cars are .3. They tried .4 for a while, but it's more moisture sensitive, so a lot of brands went back to .3, but you still got to look. The .4 is synthetic, which you can use .4 in an older car, but you can't use .3 in a newer car. So, but I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a pleasure having you here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet. I got a lot of tutorials, a lot of in the shop videos, and all kinds of things going on every week. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget, you're awesome. Nice and easy. Toyotas don't break, everyone knows that. So you just sell them maintenance. They sold it off the oil change rack, and it was fun.